But yeah, so thank you, Magid. Thank you very much for coming. You know, I think really what I want to find out above all else is how on earth do you have the energy to do all of this? You know, you've got a chapter where you call it "Do Epic Shit," and you do. You know, you've gone on to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. You know that was you did that at such an early age. And I was googling around, and this is sort of what I'd like to pass over to you. One of your school teachers, Diane Hamid from the After School Study Support Group, she said, you know, she asked you for a good reason why you should support her. No, I didn't ask her myself. I just found this online. And why should she fund your trip? And you said you want it to be an inspiration, you know, and I think that's why you've written the book. So why have you written the book, and where do you get your energy from? Over to you.
You know, first of all, just a big hello. It was good to see some familiar faces. And could I can I ask a question in terms of like demographic, like where's everybody from? And is everyone based in Yorkshire? No, nobody's from Yorkshire. Well, Linda's from Yorkshire, Emily's from Yorkshire, and some I assume people are from just all over the country. I'm assuming, other places. Fair enough. But it's lovely to be with you all. So, okay, to answer your question, Matt, in terms of like what inspired me to write the book.
Yep.
I guess honestly, it was just a case of somebody asked me if I was ever interested in writing a book. I wasn't interested, but then when the opportunity, I don't know, kind of really presented itself, I just kind of thought it would be a real good way to, I don't know, really just kind of share a lot of things that I've learned and a lot of the messages I just wanted to come across that was just so much more than just a tweet or an article, because I've written quite a few op-eds and tweets, but I just kind of thought a book was a really, really good format. I'll be honest, I was a bit daunted because I've never written a book, but like I've written long form text, but it was like a whole different kind of a challenge, and especially with, and at the time when I was writing it, it was just during Brexit and all sorts of things were happening. But yeah, honestly, it was, yeah, I'm glad, like it's I feel privileged enough to write it. It was hard, but yeah, I just really just wanted to kind of share some stories and dig deep in a lot of kind of ideas that motivate me, and really just share some of the things that I learned with people.
Brilliant. If anyone has any burning questions, I would say jump in at any point. I've got a few, put your hand up or just unmute yourself and go for it, you know.
Do you know as well, sorry, just another thing, because I remember at the time when I was writing the book proposal, for me, it was a case of, I don't know, it's like, I was writing the book that I wanted to read, like if I was, honestly, whether I was like young or whatever it was. So for me, it was literally like a guide to how anybody can disrupt those age-old power structures, whether that be in work, life, or politics. So it's not even necessarily like solidly, I kind of like, even though there's a lot of politics in the book, but there's a lot of lessons in life and work. And for me, it was just a case of getting the message across that, you know, like if you want to make a change, that be big or small, or if you're fed up of those people in power not listening or always being told we've always done it like this. And yeah, I don't know, like I guess those were the things I just wanted to kind of tackle more than anything else.
It really is how to disrupt. It's sort of what it says on the tin. So I think Linda's, you don't get away with dodging an answer here. Linda's chased you in the chat. So Linda, where do you get your energy from? You know, what is it that drives? Because, you know, I looked at your Wikipedia page. You know, I'm currently living in a hole. You were elected president of the whole union. You've run your own company. You were the Lord Mayor of Sheffield. Then you went on to be an MEP, and you still would be an MEP if we're still part of the EU. So you know, how old are you?
I'm 31.
31, right? So yeah, where do you get the energy? You know, how?
Do you know what it is, Matt? It's just, I don't know, like, I guess I'm just never been like, of course, you get to a point where you just get tired of complaining and tired of asking the wrong people to do the right thing. And I've just always been like, well, what can I do? Kind of, I've just always been somebody, I guess, that just wants to get stuck in. But also, I guess my own personal experiences shape my worldview, my politics, and also just honestly just, whether that be growing up in poverty or just seeing injustices around me in my community. I just was like, I don't know, just like something has to change, and it's that kind of thing of, I don't know, like everything that the systems that are built around us, like nothing was kind of like, it wasn't sent from the heavens. Everything was basically made by men in suits, to be exact. So it's a lot of things could change by making good human decisions. So I just wanted to kind of really, I don't know, just do my bits. And I guess there's an element of feeling fulfilled. Like for me, it's always been like, I've never had much of a career plan. Like I studied aquatic zoology, like worked in a couple of call centers, worked for a housing charity called Shelter, ran a business for a bit. And then for me, it's always been, as long as I feel like I'm having or playing a positive contribution to those around me, then I kind of feel fulfilled. And it was just really just believing that things can get better, that we all deserve better, and it's something worth fighting for, even though, like, regardless of how high the mountain is or whatever, it's like, it's something worth fighting for.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna hand over. I've got a raised hand. Is that from Francis? Sorry, David. Don't know why I'm using last names now. Over to you.
Yeah, great to see you here, Magid. Thanks for joining us. My question was really, I had a flick back through the book this afternoon, knowing that we were doing this. And one of the things that really stuck out to me, there's a line in there that says, if we look at the elected officials who claim to lead us in both local and national government, they don't reflect the people they're meant to represent. And I think that's really true. I'm a councillor in South Tyneside, and on our council, it's it's largely, well, it's entirely white for starters. It's largely older people. I'm the second youngest on the council, and I'm in my 40s. So the people that we represent, it doesn't match the demographic of the area. And so my question is, in your opinion, how do we get better at encouraging younger people, or maybe parents of young children, people that are still in work as opposed to people who are retired, and more Black and minority ethnic people to get involved in community and get involved in politics, and ideally consider standing as candidates? I know in your local party where you are, you do seem to do that really well, from what I can gather looking from afar, in terms of the diversity of candidates. But what do you think that other parties and other groups can learn in terms of how to make sure that the elected representatives do accurately represent the communities they're meant to serve?
Yeah, great question. And lovely to see you again, David. And honestly, it's whether that be local politics, local government, or national government, like you said, like the people that we choose to elect as our leaders, they don't reflect the people that they're there to represent. So even if we look at the government cabinet, for example, like majority of them come from a certain background, certain class, or all predominantly millionaires. So it's like, how on earth, like, when they make a decision that's going to affect everyone in the country, how are they meant to really understand the devastating effects of austerity, or even child poverty? We know what their thoughts on child poverty is, because they were even refusing to feed hungry children. So it's, if we did have a more representative elected based on, would that be on local government, national government? But honestly, it would really work towards having a more fair and just society. But one thing I will say is, I don't think representation alone answers all the questions, because like we can have Black and brown faces in high places and it just not amount to a whole lot of change. Because look, like, it's the Tories will claim, look, we've got the most diverse cabinet, like we've got Sajid Javid, like Priti Patel, like evil people, in my opinion, competent at being evil, well, not so competent, but it's like, so what, like, just because you've got like I would rather have a old white man as leader, and that's at least going to fight injustices that are affected by minority ethnic people, than just having Black and brown people who basically just don't do anything to kind of lift the plight of people on the bottom end of the spectrum. So of course we want, like, representation is important. So like, for example, in my case, like, it's nobody, like, to be honest with you, nobody told me to run to be a councillor. It was like, I did a lot of research, and like I said, I was just having a complaint. I just wanted to do something. And then I literally read up a lot. I forced myself to watch daily politics. I'd watch a lot of YouTube videos. And Mark McGowan, the artist taxi driver, he's just a great guy. But so I would literally just kind of like teach myself quite a lot, and then find out like how local decisions are made. And then it was like, right, who these councils? How can I become a councillor? And then it kind of just really kind of lived from there. But also it was like, once I got elected as a councillor, like for me, I just believe that God's given us two hands, one to climb and also one to bring people up with us. So it's, for me, it was also like, well, right, it's great that I've become a councillor. What can I do to support other people like myself to also become councillors? So then, like when I got elected to be councillor, I was the only black person on Sheffield City Council. And then, like, even though like the Greens, some people would argue, aren't known to be the most diverse political party, and a lot of them, for me, it was a case of like, right, supporting a woman called Kulthum, and who's a refugee mother of four, but who's an amazing community activist and an educator. And I made it my mission for the next year to basically support mentor her and for her to kind of stand to be the candidate and see it through the game. And then she got elected, and then it's also like, she's also taking that responsibility to really kind of engage in the kind of, because the thing is, young people, women, whatever, like manage kind of, like politics affects all our lives. And I think, honestly, it's just a case of, because a lot of the times I feel like a lot of kind of, I don't know, like local, like political parties, they feel as if like, well, some of them are a bit entitled and don't feel the need to actually engage with young people or minority ethnic groups because they feel as if like, oh, they're already going to vote for us kind of thing. And I don't think it's the case as well. At times we expect people to come to us rather than us actually going out to people and kind of like putting our case across of why, basically, just why our policies are best and serve the community. But also, honestly, a lot of times it's just done through people see what the local party's been up to, what the local council has been up to. Like, are they hardworking people who actually care? You see in a lot of councils, and it's not to bash Labour in any shape or form. I'm sure there's a lot of good Labour councils across the country, but in Sheffield City Council, they're really, really poor. They take a lot of votes for granted. Like they'll spend hundreds of thousands of pounds trying to send citizen local people to prison using anti-trade union laws for peaceful protesting. And it's like, it's just contempt for, ordinary citizens that are engaging with the political system. So it's like, it's difficult, because also then it's a case of like, how does somebody become a councillor? And, I always struggle when young people ask me how do you become a councillor? Because there isn't like, I'll be honest, it's not a fair and just system. It's not like, it's never the case of the best person. You put yourself forward, then the best person. It really, really isn't. It's just like, I guess like in my experience, when I stood to be a councillor and there was three other people that stood against me, I was the only candidate that lived in the ward that I was looking to represent. So I guess that worked in my favor. And I was doing like 1 year of campaigning and just before I even stood. So that also helped. So it helps to be active in your local ward and all that sort of stuff. But at times as well, it's literally like, for example, like, I hate cases because with some of my friends in the Labour Party in Sheffield be like, yeah, like they always get given like the kind of the hard to win seats where the leader of the council's friends and a close associates will be given stage. So it's just all a bit murky. But honestly, like I think it's like, it only does a disservice to the people if we're not having a local or even like MPs. Well, MPs is a whole different kind of shambles, but I'm talking for a bit longer.
Can I jump in a bit? No,
next question.
When you talk about it all being murky, you can see a few people nodding. Yeah. I'm going to go to Emily, then Holly, and who've got their hands up, and then we'll go to a couple of people who sent in questions that couldn't make it today. Okay. So Emily, then Holly.
Hi, Magid. Lovely to meet you.
Hello, Emily.
Quick question first. Is it okay if I take a screenshot of just you for social media? I'll leave it. Yeah, thanks. Second question is, I'm standing for the county and city councils here in Worcestershire. And the biggest thing in your book that stood out for me was when you were talking about being on the bus chatting to people. Now, how do you get over being the loony on the bus? compared to the helpful, chatty person on the bus. Because sometimes I try and talk to people on the bus, and I always think back to the Jasper Carrot joke of, has anyone seen my camel type person where you look like a nutcase? So how do you approach people out and about without, making them think you're a nutcase?
Like, honestly, I think first of all, just like having a positive attitude and smiling is something that I kind of like. Instantly, if people just like, because honestly, you pick up from people's energies, don't you? When you just, whether that be just looking at them or their presence. So I guess I've always, like, maybe it's just, and I've always been a approachable person, but I also just generally smile quite a lot, and I'm very inquisitive, and I love catching buses. I just love buses in general, but it's, so I literally just would be like, just smile at people. But let's be honest, some people might think I'm weird, and I just like take that on the chin and I kind of just keep it moving and stuff. But it's like, especially I guess if you're catching the same bus all the time, then you start to pick up on faces. And when people start to know you're a counsellor as well, it, like in my case, it literally ended up being a like counsel surgery on the back of the bus kind of thing, or just people would always kind of just want to know. And I guess the thing as well, by being a local representative, it doesn't like, I guess like it's, people want your attention all the time. Like people are always like struggling with something. And the more you put yourself out there, the more people know of you, the more people can easily contact you, the more workload that's going to be. But also it's just, yeah, so it can like this. And I think that's like how it should be. I always saw my role as a counsellor as a glorified community and organizer and an activist. But and honestly, one of the things, amazing things about being a local councillor is that you really get to see firsthand the impact you're having on people's lives, whether that be literally going to court with a mother and her kids to stop and her getting evicted from her home, to like supporting financial. So you really like it, you get to see it kind of thing. And it's, I guess everyone counsels a bit different, but like for me, it was hard to kind of switch off because whether that be weekends, work. Then again, for me, I didn't see it as a job, and I just, because I really enjoyed it, it was just all kind of mushed in. But also the thing about it is as well, it's paid. So if you think about it, it's like, it's honestly for like the work that you do, like it's a good case to say like it should be a full-time job. And like different councils in the country get paid different. So for example, in Sheffield City Council, it's £12,300-ish a year. If you're in Manchester, it's 16,500. So it's a big disparity between different councils. But it's, I would also argue like even MPs, like for me, I would say pay MPs a shitload of money, but make a rule that they cannot have any other job. There's no conflict of interest. There's not any of that, because then I just feel like then, yeah, but I hope that answers your question. Matt's looking at me like
no, I'm just noticing the councillors. We've got councillors from different party nodding when you say it should be a full-time job.
it should be,
Yeah. Jumping to one of them, Holly, over to you.
Can you say where you're from, Holly? Like whenever, like it'd be nice to say where people are from.
I'm a counsellor in Hull.
I loved. Do you know? I spent one of my best years in Hull. Lived in. What ward are you councillor for?
Pickering in like the far west. It's basically Hessel.
Okay. Yeah.
It's. I completely agree. And actually, hearing that it's. Sorry, this doesn't relate to my question, but hearing it's actually less in Sheffield than it is in Hull really surprises me, because the living costs in Hull are very low, and you can just about sort of manage on that with a small other part-time job. But I can imagine in Sheffield, living costs are actually higher, which makes it again more difficult and puts up a barrier to younger people with families and other commitments. And that's why you get a load of pensioners doing it, which
because they've got the time. They've got the time. Mainly retired people as well. You get to see a lot of, and you also see, I don't know if it's the same in Hull, you also get a lot of couples, like kind of like elderly couples that kind of like just end up working together. But sorry, continue.
So my question was mainly around, I'm not so young anymore, but I was 24 when I was elected. I'm 27 now, but something that I've only sort of recently started getting over is actually just having the confidence to sort of overcome kind of, some of the things have been done a certain way for a very, very long time. And if you've never really had, like a full-time job before, or you've never really, you've been a student or whatever, or you've done different things all over the place. It's how do you have that confidence to actually sort of, there are a lot of people who are much older than you, much more experienced than you, but don't necessarily have better ideas than you. How do you have that confidence to actually sort of push through and sort of say, actually, no, this is why I think this is a good idea? And it's not just about age, there's a lot of
exactly. Yeah. Do you know, just on a quick side note, Holly, I tried to run a campaign because when I was student union president in Hull, I tried to get, because there's a university ward in Hull, right?
Yeah.
And we have student unit elections, and the student unit elections gets more votes than the local council election for the ward. So I was like, why don't we run students actually that live in the university ward as local councillors, kind of thing? But a lot of them just weren't up for doing it because they just kind of would feel like it wasn't for them, kind of thing. And you're right, there is, like, especially at the beginning, you do get a lot of imposter syndrome. And as well, if you think about, like, just council is just steeped in tradition and like formalities and like things that have just been done for donkeys of years, basically. And honestly, like, even just you walk into a building, like, I think it's a civic hall, you guys call it, but like you walk in and from the moment you walk in, you're reminded that at times that you don't belong here, or like this is certain establishment. You can't really put a lot of people off, young people or whatever it is. But I think it's honestly just having the confidence and kind of believing in yourself that you're there for a reason. Also really relish the opportunity, like, to actually really shake things up and come in, like, with fresh alternatives and fresh ideas and new traditions and stuff, because the reality of it is, it's like you can't please everybody, and that's the thing. Like, if you're trying to be everyone's cup of tea, you might as well be a mug, kind of thing. So it's like I really took that on as a challenge. Like, it's when I got elected in Sheffield City Council, and for me it was really important for me to really, I don't know, just bring ordinary citizens into the council chamber and kind of like make them feel as if like this was their space and it wasn't this kind of old gentleman's club kind of thing, which it kind of does feel like, feels really, really exclusive. I mean, literally, Sheffield City Council had to get literally dragged kicking and screaming to even make their meetings online. And the only reason they were objecting to it because people would have really seen how abysmal and awful the council meetings were run. Like, at least like it's just embarrassing. Like, if you're an observer and outside of it, to kind of witness how local councils, like full council meetings run, it was terrible. So I guess one of the things I did was, when I was chair of the council, was because one of the main things I really emphasized was my main two priorities were young people and also the arts and culture in the city. So at every council meeting, full council meeting, I used to have an interval where I used to bring in local creatives to perform inside the council chamber, whether that be a comedian, whether that be a poet, whether that be a shoe designer, a magician, a scientist, just to really reclaim that physical space and be like, no, this is your space. And also to really kind of show the local decision makers, those councillors, not only the amazing talent that we've got in Sheffield, but why the importance of arts and culture, why we really need to nurture and support it. But yeah, it's one of the other things I kind of picked up, I realized was I guess I'm speaking from a Sheffield Council point of view, was the leadership of the council was, they really they would not put themselves out there. And I think you've got a responsibility as a leader, even as a council, to really make sure that you're approached by people who you know who you are. And I guess people can hold you to account as well. So it got to a point where like the leader of the Sheffield City Council was nowhere to be seen, like wasn't, like, I guess, take social, I know she was on social media, but would never have any public meetings. So naturally people, because I was Lord Mayor of the city, but as we know, it's more of a ceremonial, but people thought that I was the emperor of Sheffield and I had a magic wand and I can literally, like, people would ask me for all sorts of things, but because when people are struggling, they're just going to go to who they see and they don't necessarily know how it works in terms of so I would signpost a lot of people, but it was like the more I was out there, the more like I would be inundated with cries for help or support or that sort of stuff. And I just think leaders in the city like need to really put themselves out there so people can kind of respond to them.
Talking of sort of keeping things going and sort of holding you to account. Forgive me if I butt in a little bit more. I've got a couple of questions piling in on the chat. to meet. So we'll go Linda, and then I've got to ask a few for people who couldn't make it today.
Shoot.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Magid. Lovely to meet you.
Where are you from, Linda?
I'm from the East Riding of Yorkshire Council.
Lovely.
So, you know,
Is that Beverley? Is that like Beverley way?
I live in Beverley, so that's where I am at the moment. So, and best wishes from David Tucker. I don't know if you picked that up. He couldn't join us this evening. And I feel your pain. We too. I can't do another job and be a councillor. Yet all we get is 12,300 a year. So it is the sort of realm of older people who can afford to, on the whole, who can afford to give up work. So mega credit to you, even though I spend lots of time telling people, please come and stand, please come and, you know, represent your community. Too many people can't afford it, and that is something that we really need to do something about, I think, going forward. But my burning question was, what do you think that you managed to do as Lord Mayor that you couldn't do as a normal councillor?
Great question. So one of the things I was able to do was, honestly, I know it's like literally just chair the meetings more efficient and do it fairly. Because as well, do you know, one of the things it was like, it's so silly, Linda, right? Because in Sheffield, we've got a predominantly Labour-run council, right? Even though they've got the majority, like in the council in Sheffield, even the Lord Mayor's role is to literally be neutral and basically chair it fairly and equal. So the Lord Mayor would even vote with the Labour Council when there was no need, and it was really like, it was just a lot of that kind of going on. But I guess, honestly, the best thing in terms of being the Lord Mayor, just really kind of, I don't want to kind of just gave me that platform of being the first citizen of the city kind of thing. And even though like the role kind of had its own protocols and all that sort of stuff, I really just kind of started with a blank slate. And I kind of had my own kind of vision for what I wanted the role to be. And I guess the thing is as well is there's only had like ordinary citizens don't even know how to engage with the civic office. They haven't got the email. They don't know how to like invite the Lord Mayor or engage with in certain ways. So I took it upon myself to actually be proactive and reach out to different community groups and different initiatives. And the more I guess I would put myself out there and really just be inclusive, like literally whether that be and give people lifts in the Lord Mayor's car, or to really just invite people as my plus ones. Or I really try to be as inclusive as possible to really make people feel as if like this role of Lord Mayor is also your role as well, and you can also interact and engage in it. Literally, like I would think of like anywhere, even like from like inviting people to watch Love Actually with me on Christmas Eve at the Lord Mayor's parlor, like any given way, I would literally try and like. And I guess it would kind of like even like walking people down the aisle when they're getting married, or to like getting involved in like school, like loads of school assemblies, or just like even like just doing a lot of national stuff as well, going abroad. Like I also had so much opportunities as a result of putting myself out there, but also really being unapologetically myself, because I guess at the beginning I was like, I could just conform and just try and like fit in with how like tradition, how things have always been done, or I could really do things how I want to do and kind of like break the kind of like mold. Because as well, I was like, the reality of it is I've got 12 months in this role, and I really just was like, once it's all said and done, like didn't want to kind of have any regrets or anything like that. So it was, yeah, it was a massive privilege. So I really gave him, and of course, like, just very briefly, like it didn't come with its controversies, of course. It didn't come like, to give you an example, like it got to a point where it was interesting in terms of power, because when you can argue the Lord Mayor's role chairs the full council meeting, but it's got a lot of soft power, not executive power. But when I had too much soft power, the Labour Council, would always try and find ways to dampen it down, or they even tried to change the constitution to change the role of the Lord Mayor, which has not been changed for over 150 years or whatever, just because they were literally frustrated with that I can generate more press and PR than all the council's comms team together, or I can get a message out there, like engage people. So then for them, that it became a bit of like a power struggle in the council. And that was a really fascinating thing to kind of witness. But for me, like, I literally was non-partisan in my entire time. But people would argue, oh, but you're being too political, Magid. Like, oh, you shouldn't say that, or you should, you know, tone it down and not be too political. But I was like, I even got the privilege of not being political, like not only in terms of like being someone who's a Black Muslim refugee, but also the amount of injustices that we have in Sheffield. It would be a disservice for me to not speak out about what was happening in Sheffield, to really champion those causes, but also to talk about those injustices and call people out, kind of thing. So in terms of like call the government out for it and whatnot. Whereas their idea was just to like, don't say anything, just, and I just thought, well, what's the point? Like if I'm not able to like, so yeah, it was just a lot of people like you're disrespecting the role, or some people outright say, listen, like would even write to the local paper saying, like, I'm ashamed that Sheffield City Council has got a Black Lord Mayor. It should be someone who was born in Sheffield. And also, of course, there was loads of elements of racism that was involved in it. But for me, I'll be honest, I'm thick-skinned. It didn't bother me at all. But it was like, yeah, it was, I'm trying to get it was hard as well as it was amazing. But it's, I guess at the end of the day, you're like, your energy is limited. So you try and focus on the positive things more than anything else.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And you are a great role model. That question was kind of a bit personal because next year I get to be Mayor of Beverley. So it doesn't have the power of being a Lady Mayor or a Lord Mayor like Sheffield, but perhaps I could invite you to be my +1 at some time.
I'd love to. I'll be there.
Thanks, Magid. That would be great. Thank you. There you
Fantastic.
go. I got there first.
Well done. I've got a question. So we've got 3 questions from people who couldn't make it. I've noticed, Pallavi, you've actually joined us today. I don't know if you can, you want to ask your own, but I've got one from Nazi who says, what would be an example of an action or an activity that you felt you failed at, and how did you learn from it for the next, for the next time you're going to be Lord Mayor, who knows, for someone else maybe.
One thing I made. Might be a bit of a silly one, but it's yeah, there's something called a Cutler's Hall, if anybody knows that, in Sheffield. It's like a society, it's like a really old society, kind of like Cutler's Hall kind of thing. And it's like they have the only white tie event outside of London. It's very la-di-da, put it that way. But I remember there's one event I just went to and I didn't have, so anyway, I just ended up, anyway, I was wearing a suit, but then I thought I could pull off some like, anyway, I didn't dress appropriately, let's just put it that way, kind of thing. And then, but in terms of like, I thought maybe I could have kind of like just dressed for that specific, and to like, contrary to popular belief, it's not like I hate wearing suits, like I wear suits all the time kind of thing, but it's, if it's fitting kind of thing, but it's, I know that's a crap answer, but I'm trying to think things I could, let me think about that. And if I come up, I'll come back at the end.
Awesome. Jumping over to Pallavi.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, Pallavi, where are you from?
So I'm from Norfolk, actually, West Norfolk.
Lovely.
Yeah, your fame has spread far and wide. I don't know how I got the email, but I saw that you were talking and I thought I must listen in. I've been fascinated with your journey for a little while now. Yeah, I love it that you were Lord Mayor and you were such a flamboyant, big mayor. Normally nobody ever hears of a mayor. And then you come along and suddenly everybody knows that you're the mayor of Sheffield. So really, and then I loved it that you became MEP as well, albeit very short-lived. So well done. Thank you very much for being up there, for being who you are. My question really is, how on earth did you become mayor in the first place? Is it some kind of a rotation? Because we have a very Tory council here in West Norfolk, and they're very loath to let any non-Tories occupy that hallowed seat. We had an independent who should have become mayor according to the protocol, but they nudged him aside and put a Tory instead. So do you have that problem where you are? Is this?
It's interesting because it's like, I think every council runs it a bit different. And correct me if I'm wrong, Holly. I think like in Hull, is it the longest serving councillor that becomes in Lord Mayor in Hull? You're going to say something? No, just different. Go on, Holly.
Oh, longest, yeah, they did exactly that. They changed it. So it's now longest serving from the ruling group. So it's been Labour.
Okay, so before it used to be the longest serving councillor.
Yeah, and then Labour changed it.
Yeah. So you kind of say in Sheffield, it's like a points-based system. But even then, it's not kind of bulletproof kind of thing, right? Put it this way, it's like there was an incident in Sheffield City Council, like in the council meeting, 2 council meetings before the inauguration of the kind of Lord Mayor. And there was one of the colleagues, my fellow Green colleagues, Alison Teal, and said in a meeting that I believe Councillor Brian Lodge has deceived the public, and gave evidence for it. And it later turned out to be true. And he got sacked from his job. But they told her to withdraw that comment. She goes, well, no, because it's what I believe and he's the proof for it. So then they ejected her. They told her to they threw out the council chamber. And then as show solidarity, we went also kind of with her. And then they were like to me, well, we're not going to vote you in to be the Lord Mayor, Magid, because you disrespected the Lord Mayor by walking out. And then they were like, well, we'll only do it if you if you write a public letter of an apology. And it was like, they're trying to use it as a political, it was just a lot of there's a lot of things kind of going, so it wasn't easy kind of thing, but of course I didn't apologize for it, but then it was, it kind of just went through, and then there was a thing where some of them didn't vote for me because I believed in a republic, in the sense that I believe that regardless of your background, everyone should be entitled to become a head of state. And then some Labour councillors found that disrespectful to the role. And so it was like, but yeah, I just had the majority. So it's like, even though it's points-based system and the Greens kind of accumulate enough points, but it wasn't that black and white kind of thing. And it was, yeah, it's just honestly, it's a really weird system. And in all honesty, but yeah, like I said, you have to be an elected councillor to be Lord Mayor.
I'll better go.
On that I'll tell you very quickly in terms of how I became a councillor, very, very briefly. It was all-out elections because the boundaries changed in Sheffield. So had all-out elections, and there was already 2 Green councillors in the ward that I was standing where I lived. And because all the seats were up and everybody was up, and it was a bizarre situation where the 2 sitting Green councillors didn't get elected, and I got elected, even though we were expected to get all 3 seats. And because even the Labour councillors in the ward left for a different safe seat, so it was very bittersweet. And it was just honestly, a lot of it is a bit of luck, a lot of it is just working really hard. It's hard to kind of pin down. So it's over to you, Matt. You're on mute.
How many times have I done that? And I'll just pass the baton straight back over to Holly. We've got one from someone else, but it's a nice one to end on if we don't have any more after that.
Hello, me again. Sorry.
Don't apologise. That's fine.
It just occurred to me. So I sort of finally had the confidence to do my first motion last year, but I've actually got to thank one of your successors at Hull University in the union presidents for it, and that's Asaro Atuabo.
Yeah. I also know Anissa Akbar.
Yes, she's great. I like Anissa a lot.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm sure you're aware then that Asaro started a campaign called Make Diversity Count.
Yeah.
And based around her experiences. And I remember sort of reading about that and being like, oh my God, I thought university would do better.
Even in my time, it was shit, to be honest, but we moved.
Yeah. But that was kind of what my question was about. So I moved a motion backing her suggestion that the Equalities Act be reviewed. But also it was about reviewing the policy at the council and making sure we had a much clearer policy. And sort of fortunately, it was passed unanimously. So that is something that should be ongoing. But I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts on reflecting on the roles you've had and what you think should be done better.
Hull's a very interesting place in terms of the university, because it's very renowned for its law and course called BPLS, British Politics Legislative Studies, and it's the only politics degree in the country which is part of your course. You do 1 year in Westminster working for a peer, so it's very lucrative, and it's they call themselves the Hull Mafia. There's been loads of MPs, Conservative and Labour, who are literally MPs and they call themselves the whole mafia because they're all kind of connected. Like Tom Watson to be one of those, like this and loads of and others. So it was like whole university is a very political dominated. So it's like even before when I stood, the previous I think 10 presidents before me were all part of like the Labour Club, for example. And somebody like myself who didn't study politics, I studied aquatic zoology, and I came from a sports background. I instantly they would even send the union would send letters to people that they think they should run an election. I was never in that fold, even though I was really active and one. So I instantly knew from the get-go I was walking into an environment that wasn't built or designed for me to actually become or hold any representative roles or anything like that. And so when I decided to run, just through the support of lots of different friends and stuff, and thankfully got elected, and then it was dealing with the university itself, and it was, I don't know, I found it very toxic environment, and I didn't have the greatest of experience, in all honesty, and I'm sure everyone's got different experiences, but but I learned a lot in all honesty. I guess one of the highlights I had from there was eradicated by over £250,000 of hidden course costs for university and students, as well as revamping the sports provision. So there's a lot of things I was really proud of, but it wasn't a great, put it that way. So that's why, I remember when Osara got in touch with me with a campaign, I completely supported it because I completely related to it.
All right, so
do you know what's interesting? Because it's really funny in the sense that I never really saw myself ever going down to politics. In the sense of even when I stood to be a whole university student president, I kid you not, I didn't even know what what do they call it? I didn't even know what a picket line was. I remember at the hustings being asked if I was going to join the picket line and just absolutely gambling and saying yes, and then people just clapping. So in terms of honestly, I'll be honest with you, when I was at university, I knew that the issues I cared about, but I couldn't. In terms of somebody who's asked me, Magid, politically, are you left or right? I was like, what do you mean, politically left or right? For me, it was about the issues, campaigning for a tuition-free education, campaigning to eradicate the hidden costs. So I was more of an issues-based, and that's what I kind of campaigned. And of course, even when I was campaigning, I was using social. I kind of just engaging people in a different way that I saw other sort of and that what kind of got me a lot of support from the students, kind of thing. But it was only later on, and I mean, seeing the rise of. I remember the 2014 European elections, in fact, seeing the rise of Nigel Farage and UKIP and just thinking, with so much rhetoric of fear, hate and division, thinking to myself, if I could at least make my small part of the world, my Sheffield, my community, that bit better, that's at least me doing something to kind of combat that. And then that's why I got involved in my local campaign. The first campaign I did with Sheffield was to save the local library from closing, which was successful. And then that's what kind of led me to a journey of then doing the online test, which political party best represented me. And at the time it was the Green Party, because the Green Party, I joined the Green Party not for environmental reasons. It was more from the social aspect, because they were until the only party that has always had a red line against austerity. The party has always stood up for free education. So a lot of the kind of values and principles that I aligned with consistently as well. And that's what kind of drew me to the Green Party. And then the rest is history, I suppose. Of course, we've got one planet, we need to live within our means. I'm not saying we should ignore the climate crisis in any shape or form, because as we know, the climate crisis as well is a climate justice crisis. So it's,
Well, since we're talking about serious issues, we've had a question come in about your time on Hunted, but since we're going in the order they come in the chat, can we go to Rowan and then Mark?
Hi, Magid. Very good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Where are you from, Rowan? Where's home?
South London.
South London, lovely.
So first caveat, your book is on my to-do list, but I just read it just before this. Don't kiss a Tory. I don't understand why there is so much antagonism, tribal politics. Are we going to end up like Trump's America, where everybody is just sticking to parties and not voting for the best candidates. And also, as like a second part of that question, why do Labour and Greens always focus on sort of the people and the issues and the money that needs to be given to solve them, but never on how to earn the money? Which is why the Tories are always talking about they being the business party and everybody else is the people and community parties.
I would even question if they are business party, but it's in terms of like, to answer your first question, it's why are people like, we've got a shit voting system to begin with, Rowan. Like it's like first past the post system is completely archaic. And I think I don't know if it's the only countries, like maybe someone could, but one of the other countries that have got it is the Vatican State. Like all and across Europe, they've got some form of proportional representation. And because we have got first past the post system, we'll always force people to vote for the lesser of two evils. And the only reason the Conservatives and Labour won't change it is because it serves them. Like it's at power at all costs and kind of thing. And I'll be honest with you, it's like even at the last general election, even though like it wasn't popular and I got a lot of stick from it, even from certain colleagues and stuff like that, I was advocating for people to vote tactically, because for me it was like we just could not get the Tories support the Tories into government, because if we wanted to like seriously tackle the climate crisis, stop us, so everything that we wanted, we were never gonna, like even we wanted people's, but everything that I think the Greens believed in and wanted, as well as Labour, I just think it was like it wasn't a case of like, the Tories could not have gotten. So for me, I wasn't tribal in that aspect, but it's just the way that it's set up, and it's just the vehicles that we've got, unfortunately. It definitely needs changing, and it's when we like, I love how certain people love to bang on about Britain being a bastion of democracy, when we literally, it's more like a hypocrisy more than anything else. I really struggle to kind of explain to people, like a lot of like European colleagues, when they ask me about the House of Lords kind of thing, I'm like, well, how does somebody become a member of the House of Lords if they're not elected, and how can they amend and legislate? Well, it's honestly like it needs complete abandonment and totally. So it's I forgot what your question was. Ask me the question again, Rowan. I don't know if I'm answering it.
Sorry, no, my apologies. I did sort of put two questions in one there. So the first one was basically, why is there so much tribal politics? And the second question was,
you asked me about Don't Kiss a Tory as well.
Yes, yeah, it was actually inspired by the Don't Kiss a Tory. Labour and Greens focus very much on the issues of the day, which I totally agree with. The Tories are mocked for being the business party and the elitists, but the Tories are always talking about, how to improve business, how to make money in order to give to the communities. But
you know as well,
about business.
Yeah, there's always this whole trickle down economics that we need to probably support. Like it's not been how long have we been trialing it out, and it's not been working? And it's like you'll always see it. It really frustrates me when it comes to election period. They'll always say, "Oh, you want free education? Do you? How are you going to pay for it? Oh, you want more money for the NHS? How are you going to pay for it?" It's as if like our pockets aren't deep enough when it comes to the morally right things to do. Whereas when it comes to like tax breaks or renewing Trident, all money for all, everything else, there's a magic money tree that we somehow pull out. But when it comes to the morally just and right things to do, like our pockets aren't deep enough. And it shouldn't be a question of how are we going to pay for it. It should be, how can we not pay for it, kind of thing. So it's of course, it's like the Tories and will always say, "Oh, well, we haven't got enough money, this and that. We need to." It's I don't know, like they keep banging on about, especially like after 2008 crash, and they were blaming it on Labour with the whole like the car crash and that sort of stuff. But we really need to kind of challenge them on that rhetoric. And in terms of like, okay, so do you know, just a very quick thing. So the cover of the book, like the 10 Commandments, it comes from like Sheffield Music Festival Tramlines. They asked me to do a poster at their music festival like a 10-foot poster or something. They said you can have whatever you want on it, Magid, and it was the 10th year anniversary of the festival. So I was like, okay, something around 10. So I came up with Sheffield's 10 Commandments. And that was basically, one of them was don't kiss a Tory. And of course it was like, we haven't got no like Tory councillors in Sheffield, but people took that to heart because like next minute I had like the BBC were vox boxing people in the street saying, is it appropriate that the Lord Mayor says don't kiss a Tory? Listen, I'm not going to out there. I'm not going to police people's like affection that they're going to kiss. Like, I'm not going to stop people kissing from whoever they want, kind of thing, right? But I guess what it does in the book, like it's like that entire chapter is like me getting on my soapbox. Like it's like talks about. I guess it is a bit tongue in cheek, but it also has got a lot of kind of serious and points to it, and really just talks about the devastating effects of conservative policy. And do you know the thing is, it's like you can say so much worse things about Tories than just don't kiss them. Like don't trust a Tory, don't ever. It's like kiss whoever you want. Like I'm sure many of you here probably kissed a Tory without even knowing they're a Tory, but just wash your mouth out afterwards. I'm joking.
I know.
I'm joking. It's like, always like even like some Tory people find it funny. It's not like, but when people just like, it's quite funny how like this. Honestly, what I found interesting was the same people that kept calling me snowflake or like oh you're oversensitive. I'm like all of a sudden get really up in arms about somebody telling them not to kiss somebody. It's like, come on, guys.
Humor, you're missing it.
Matt, back to you in the studio.
Brilliant. Back to me in the show. Thank you. Well, if anyone has, I'm just noticing we're starting to sort of creep up to 6:30. So let's get to the really meaty stuff about Hunted.
Thanks, Matt. So can I ask a question about Hunted? We really want to know.
Where are you from, Mark?
I'm from Yorkshire originally, but I'm exiled to London. So my bad luck. Yeah, we've got a couple of Hunted fans here. So we really want to know about your time, but we'll dress it up as a serious question about handling the media and the national media. You mentioned the BBC on your patch about don't kiss a Tory. And I suppose I'll ask a question. Do you intend to have more of these problems? Do you tend to be a politician on the national stage? Is that your ambition? Or not that you already are, I suppose, but do you intend to go? Do you intend to go further than that?
Okay, quick thing with Hunted very briefly. For those that don't know what it is, it's a entertainment drama, kind of like factual entertainment, which seems like an oxymoron, but it's like where you're meant to go on the run to evade capture. But like, sorry to break it to a lot of people, but it's like the hunters know where you are. Like a lot of it is kind of like the storylines are written beforehand. You've got like you've got a tag, and it's not what you think it is. Every time you think why they're doing that, you have to do it. When you watch it, seems like it's a very good watch in terms of it's exciting. It's a drama, but it's like if I really wanted to evade capture, I'd hide in my mate Barry's basement wearing a balaclava for 25 days and nobody would find me. But it's like it's entertainment kind of thing. But it was an interesting thing. Like I hitchhiked a lot around Wales. Went to some really small villages. It was a fun time. But in terms of like the things that I've been doing, so there's two things I'm doing at the moment. So one of the things I'm doing is I've partnered with a arts university in Amsterdam where I run a program called New Politics and Afrofuturism. And so the base of the program is led by me along with some other kind of tutors. So in a nutshell, it's really explores how we use popular culture as powerful vehicles for propelling progressive social justice narratives to mainstream audiences with a focus on Black activism, climate justice, and political theory and practice. So that's one thing I've been doing. But the other thing I've been doing is, and so next month, like on the 12th, we're going and myself and a colleague are going to launch a European climate organization, which we've been working with quite a few of our European counterparts, mainly looking at the intersection between climate and race. Because as we know, we can't talk about the climate crisis without recognizing it's also an inequality and race issue. And so, yeah, so that's another thing I've been working with the past couple of months, and which is basically just involves like creating a European network, and as well as working in a lot of kind of like EU policies, making sure that the policies that they're working on doesn't add to the already injustices that people of color and migrants face across Europe and stuff. So yeah, they're the kind of two things I've been focused, like been doing, but I've been doing lots of odd things here and there as well, like just random stuff, like random stuff.
Brilliant. I think you're muted.
Thank you very much, Magid. That's great. I see. I'll hand over back to you, Matt, because we're 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, well, with 2 minutes to go, I thought I might ask you a bit of a quick fire one. Have you got any books to recommend, or maybe anyone you might like to, if you could tell them to go to a book club, who would be your go-to?
1 second. Okay. I'll just say the last book I read. It's like it's called When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kelly Neathey. It's a great book. It's basically about a surgeon, a cancer surgeon, best in his field, who then ends up getting cancer himself, and it's just looking at the journey of being a doctor surgeon to being a patient and talking about morality. But I wish I read more books, in honestly. So but I also recently read *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari, which is a big book but really amazing. And I also started reading Machiavelli the Prince.
That was the first book we read here. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what I found out interesting? Apparently he knocked it, or like it's a knockoff from another book from Marley kind of thing years or so. Apparently, like there's a lot of controversy with the book, which I found kind of like it's apparently it's like Machiavelli knocked it off another philosopher.
You should have been there a year ago. Well, maybe to wrap up a little bit, and I'll invite you when we can either have *Sapiens* or *When Breath Becomes Air*. It might be a nice little cover. I thought I've seen a few people hold the book, but I thought I might just do a little screen grab, just see how many books we can actually get on screen. In 3, 2, 1, and I've done it. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Magid, most of all for spending your time with us. Thank you to all the new.
No, the pleasure's been all. And thank you, Matt, for coming to Off the Shelf as well.
It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. I've got thank you for the signed copy. Well, have a nice evening, everyone, and I'll hopefully see you at one of the next ones.